Everyone says time is valuable, but most people treat it like it's endless. They waste 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour in the evening that doesn't really matter, and nothing dramatic happens. The day still ends, life still moves forward, which is exactly why it's dangerous. Because time rarely disappears in large pieces. It disappears quietly, in fragments that feel too small to care about, until one day you notice something uncomfortable. Years passed, and the life you imagined building never really began. The strange thing about time is that you rarely notice when you're wasting it. You notice when you lose money. You notice when you lose opportunities. But time disappears quietly. A long evening that turns into scrolling. A weekend that passes without anything meaningful happening. Days that feel busy but leave nothing behind. And because nothing dramatic happens, the loss feels invisible. But time has a rule that most people underestimate. It compounds. Small hours accumulate, just like small investments do. An hour spent learning something becomes a skill. An hour spent building something becomes progress. An hour spent thinking deeply becomes clarity. But an hour spent escaping reality becomes nothing. And when nothing repeats long enough, entire years can pass without your life moving in the direction you once imagined. Time also has another property that makes it dangerous. You cannot store it. You cannot save it for later. Every hour that passes is permanently spent, whether you used it intentionally or allowed it to disappear. And this is where many people make a quiet mistake. They assume they will start later. Later when things calm down. Later when motivation appears. Later when life feels more stable. But time does not wait for the perfect moment. It continues moving at the same speed. Days become months. Months become years. And one day you realize something uncomfortable. You were always planning to start. But you spent most of your time preparing for a future that never actually arrived. There is another reason time slips away so easily. The present moment always feels small. 30 minutes does not feel important. One evening does not feel important. A quiet Sunday afternoon feels like something you can easily give away. So people trade those moments without thinking. A little entertainment, a little distraction, a little comfort, and each trade feels harmless because the cost is invisible in the moment. But life is not measured in dramatic decisions. It is measured in repeated days. What you do with your evenings eventually becomes your future. What you do with your weekends eventually becomes your direction. The problem is that time never announces its value while you still have it. It only becomes obvious after it is gone. That is why people rarely notice the problem while it is happening. Life feels busy. Days are full of activity, work, messages, errands, conversations, entertainment. Something is always happening, so it feels as if time is being used. But activity and progress are not the same thing. You can fill every hour of your day and still move nowhere. Because progress requires direction. It requires choosing something and returning to it again and again. Most people don't lose time through laziness. They lose it through diffusion. Their attention moves constantly, from one thing to another to something new again. Nothing lasts long enough to compound. So years pass filled with motion, but very little momentum. And momentum is what turns time into results. Without it, time simply continues moving while your life stays roughly in the same place. There is another reason people underestimate time. When you are young, the future feels enormous. 10 years sounds like a lifetime. 30 feels distant. 40 feels almost abstract. So time feels abundant. There is always another year, another chance, another moment to begin. But something strange happens as life moves forward. The years begin to accelerate, not because time itself changes, because routines begin to repeat. The same commute, the same workdays, the same evenings. And when days start looking similar, the brain compresses them. Months pass faster. Years feel shorter. Until one day someone looks up and realizes an entire decade disappeared much faster than expected. Not through catastrophe, through repetition, through days that felt ordinary while they were happening. The uncomfortable truth about time is simple. You will spend it either way. Tomorrow will arrive. Next year will arrive. A decade will arrive. The only question is what will be built by the time it does. Because time does not stop while you hesitate. It does not slow down while you prepare. It does not wait until you feel ready. It simply continues, quietly converting days into years. And those years eventually become a life. That is why time is the most unforgiving resource you have. Money can return. Opportunities can appear again. Skills can be learned later. But time only moves in one direction, which means the direction of your life is being shaped right now by how you spend the next hour, not the next decade, not the perfect future moment. This hour. Because the life people admire years from now is rarely built through dramatic breakthroughs. It is built through thousands of ordinary hours that were used with intention instead of quietly given away.